Good afternoon, everyone. This is Darrell Bennett, Comeback Swinging. First of all, I just want to thank you all for joining me. I have already said that we're going to be doing some exciting things in 2021. We have already announced the Jobs and Justice initiative. If you did not hear about it, then you better ask somebody. The Jobs and Justice initiative is for us working with employers to help 100,000 people from disenfranchised communities to get hired in 2021. And that's partly why I'm on here today now to share how we're going to do that. 100,000 people. Let me say that one more time. 100,000 people. If you're listening to me on this and you're on a mobile device, put that in the comments. 100,000. I do believe in the power of intentionality and speaking a goal and having bold, ambitious goals. And we are dealing with a hiring crisis in America unlike we have ever seen before since the Great Depression, perhaps. And I want to show you how we are working with employers across the country to do hiring better, particularly high volume hiring better and more effectively. Now, I want to pull this up here. My hope is that, no, let me make sure we get this right. Before I introduce this, let me first share with you this. We are going to be doing a number of things in order to move the needle in hiring. Again, if you're just joining, we are committed to working with organizations, employers across this country to help 100,000 people from disenfranchised communities in America get hired. And I want to show you partly how we're going to do that. I want to share with you some of the partners that we're working with. And I also want to give you the landscape of what's happening moving forward. I'm going to begin to have some webinars and specifically for employers. So that way you can begin to see, even on your end, how you can begin to solve hiring challenges. We found that last year, 2020, of course, was an unprecedented year. There were so many people that lost their jobs and so many industries that just went away. But there were also a lot of industries that were created in the midst of this. The gig economy was sort of like a byword 2 years ago, but now we know that it is here to stay. We found that in the middle of the height, I would say, of the pandemic, when fears were really at their most as far as what would happen and what would the future be, we found that even in those times that there were companies that were doing hiring and volume. And so let me pull this up here because I want to show you something. And this is going to help set the stage for where we're going. Because I want to give you an insight into some, and we thought this was already. So while I'm pulling this up, give me a second. You know, it's Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong. This is not good. This is not good. There we go. And actually, I want to introduce this before I even pull this up. I want to give you a glimpse into something here. So I work with a company called Panda Logic. That's one of the companies I consult with. And I want to pull this up because I want people to see this. This is not like private information. This is something that is shared generally. If it was not, I would not put this here. But I'm putting this here because what I find is that part of my role in sharing this powerful technology that is changing the landscape of the way hiring is done is educating people on what's the future of recruiting. Now, when I started my role as just like in the, if you want to call it talent acquisitions world, it was on the other end. I was working with, I was working with prospective employees and how to navigate the interview, how to walk in the room and own the room, how to do the things on their resume that's going to, help them to stand above the crowd, how to put things in the application that's going to help them to get past the box. So I was looking at it from an individual standpoint, how to help people specifically who wanted to get a job. Then, the series of events shifted. And now I'm in a role where we're working with companies now on the other end to help them to fill these hires. See, this goes with jobs and justice. Remember, we talked about jobs and justice. Part of hiring is not just about talking to job seekers. It's also about talking to the employers at scale. How can we begin to change, move the needle at scale? Remember, the last video, I shared a bit about how we cannot continue to navigate this process individually. It's no way that our office can announce hiring 100,000 workers, right? And that be us working with people individually. It's just not feasible. So what we're talking about here is how to do hiring at scale. That's what I want to pull. I'm going to pull this back up and show you. This is what we're helping employers to do. The only reason why I'm showing this here is because I want to give people a tasting of some of the organizations and companies that we are working with to begin to change the needle and jobs and justice. Remember, we talked about this, jobs and justice, jobs and justice. How do we begin to move this needle? How do we begin to do it? Well, one of the ways is working with companies that are helping people get hired and working with companies that are hiring people. There are companies, I don't want you to believe that everybody's going broke now and everybody's not hiring. That is not the case. DoorDash, for instance, was looking for 300,000 workers in June of last year. That was just in June. We have a number of companies that we know of that are hiring, and they are hiring in mass. And so what our work is partly focused on is working with those employers who are looking for job seekers to more actively and effectively connect them with those job seekers. And also, I do want to say this, jobs and justice, and also help employers to look at the processes that are in place that are perhaps keeping people from wanting to apply or keeping retention low or keeping turnover high. We don't just want to offer, I'm going to pull this up and show you some of the technology that is being used to usher in the future of recruiting. But also we understand on the back end of technology, there are processes, there are people, there are policies in place. When they ask certain questions, I don't want to get on a tangent here, but sometimes employers ask certain questions on the application that perhaps aren't even necessary for the job, but all they're doing is causing folks that would want to work for them not to want to apply. So some of the things that you're going to see me do here and see me bring on, so starting Friday, that's the first thing I want to tell you. This Friday, one of my franchisee buddies is going to come on. We're going to do a franchisee Friday, and he's going to share with you what it's like hiring from the perspective of an employer, but more specifically, how high volume hiring, right, is more effective, and what's working for him and what's not working. We want to begin to open up the conversation amongst owners of businesses, owners of small and medium-sized businesses. And so this is where you come in. If you are the owner of a franchise specifically, or a small or medium-sized business, and you are looking for better ways to do hiring at scale, I'm not talking about you need one or two people. I'm talking about hiring at scale. You need 30, you need 40 people. You have several locations. You need to reach out to me. I'm going to show you something, and I'm going to show you why you need to reach out, because what we're going to do is connect you with the organizations that are most effectively, and I'm going to show you something now. This is so neat. Effectively using technology and using best practices to help people get hired. Because this is what it comes down to. When we do hiring effectively, we change communities. We are going to change the landscape of this country and thereby the world by changing the way we do hiring. I want you to understand how serious this is. This is very, very serious. For some people, you might just look at this as just something else that you put on a balance sheet or some sheet to say, oh, how many people that applicants hires. And if you're not careful, and I'm going to pull up this slide, but just hear me on a second. For those of you that are business owners, for those of you that are in HR, for those of you that are in talent acquisitions, if you're not careful when you look at hiring, it's so easy to look at hiring in sense of numbers and metrics and KPIs. That's the world we live in now, graphs and charts. And so you look at it and you look at what's the quota, what's the metric. It's easy to look at CPA, what's my cost per applicant, my cost per click. But I want to jolt you out of that for 1 second to just say that behind every applicant, behind every metric, behind every tick and every chart, that's a person, that's a family. And so when we change hiring and we do it more effectively, we're changing the landscape of the world. Now, before I show this slide, let me say one other thing. I want us to stop looking at things as competition. I work with franchisees. This company that I'm going to show you some things that I'm doing with, my role is to spread the word to franchisees. Now, they've already been working with some of the big level accounts. Some of the, can't name the companies here, but that are at the high level orders that are, hiring and, spending millions of dollars to hire. My role is to spread the word to franchisees that this technology is now something that your small business owner can use. Now this is something that your medium-sized business owner can use. And at first, I didn't really understand the importance of it because I'm thinking, well, it's just like Indeed or Zip, Recruiter or Monster. It's just something else like it. I did not understand it. I'm going to show you this, that this is the beginning of a totally different way that people do hiring, that companies do hiring. It is an early adoption. And what I recognize is when we see things as competition, meaning, so let me go back to the fact that my role is to share this with franchisees. At first, I thought of it as, well, we started with one brand. I don't want to mention it here, but it's one brand. It's a pizza brand, and we sold, and shared this with many people. But if we tell other people, what does that look like in a sales cycle? But this is what I want to say. This is so beyond all of that. When we look at hiring as scaling and not on just our individual level, it changes the way we see things. So let's say, for instance, you are, let me throw out the name of a company, Walmart. You're Walmart. Every Walmart that you build, right, it builds your brand. In fact, let me give you a better example, Walgreens. For those of you that's read the book From Good to Great, Jim Collins, one of the things that they talk about is how the CEO of Walgreens at the time determined, after they determined to get out of the malt shake business and food, because that's how they started, that they determined that they were going to build as many locations as possible in proximity. So if they had money to build 50 Walgreens, they weren't going to build them across 50 states. They were going to focus in one locality, and their thinking was put them on the corners, right? One, the corner of a street. Two, put enough of them in proximity in a specific city. Now, there was some on the board that thought this was a stupid strategy. Why would you overly saturate a market? The CEO guessed, and he was right. Guess is not really the word I should use. Surmised, opined, calculated, perhaps I should say, strategized that the more Walgreens there were, it was going to build their brand, and it would actually cause more people to come proportionately rather than if they would have done it another way. So not only did it explode and make their business explode, remember again, the book is Good to Great. What they also found was that other businesses saw a bump too. Let me tell you something that my mentor always would tell me. Rising tide lifts all ships. When you do hiring better, it helps everybody. When each employer that we can help do hiring better, I don't care who you're working with, if we can help you do hiring better, if we can help you get more people in your company, it's going to change the landscape for everybody. And so I want us to walk into this discussion as we begin to have, and I bring on different people from some of the different networks that I'm working with. I'm going to bring on some folks that are business owners as we talk about jobs and justice. I'm going to bring on some folks that are, pillars in the law enforcement community. One of my mentors, advisors, is a top official in the NYPD, and I want to bring him on here. He's going to talk with us about what does jobs and justice mean. I mean, what does it mean to not talk about economic inequality and just talk about the law enforcement piece? And we're going to talk about it from an educational piece. I want to bring on some folks from an educational piece to talk about what's happening on the ground in colleges and graduate schools as they are anticipating this shift in talent. Things are changing. They recognize that COVID has completely disrupted and shifted the talent pipeline. And what does that look like now? As we have these conversations, this is what I need you to do. If you know of someone who has hiring challenges and they fall in one of three categories, I need you to have them reach out to me. One, they are an owner or an operator of a franchise. That's primarily who I speak to and who I can connect you with. That's who I want to really talk to. If they are a small business owner 2 or medium business owner 3, but they are spending already on recruiting and they're looking for better ways to use that budget on those job boards so that way they can get more effective return on investment, which means more hires, more quality hires. Reach out to me. Let me show you this, and then I'm going to jump off. I've already been on here longer than I said I would. Every time I get on and I say I'm going to be 5 minutes, I end up being 20. Well, why is that, y'all? Why is that? All right, let me pull this up. All right. When I first saw this slide, I was like, I don't even know what in the world this is, right? What in the world? I'm not a big slide person, but I realize that visuals are important. And visuals are important for everybody. And if you're watching this now, or you watch it later, and you're an employer, and you're wondering, what do you mean there's a more effective way to do hiring? This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about here. I want to show you really quickly, and I promise I'm not going to be long here. I want to take you through the history of how recruiting has been done in the past. I promise I won't go too far back. So I'll start in the inception of this country, 1776. No, I'm just kidding. So if you take it about 20 years ago, the main way that people advertised was on newspapers. All right, that's the main way people still did it. Newspapers, print articles, whatever, print media. And then with the advent of the internet, there came a better way to do things. So the first way that they kind of shifted things was to move things onto what you would call an online job board. So now things are just like there and they are posted, right? They're there and they're posted. So that's where you would call your career builders and your monsters. Now, this is the thing, right? Things are still manual with Career Builder and Monster. Because whenever I talk to people about technology and where the world is going. People are like, well, career builder, monster, zip, they're all the same. No, they are not. And let me explain the difference. Even if you're not an employer, you're a job seeker, you might want to listen into this because this is important to know the difference between it. So I'm telling you now the history and how we get to where we are now in the future of recruiting. So it used to be, the employers wanted to hire you. They put an ad in the newspaper. You wanted to get hired. You looked at the newspaper. Then it moved to the internet, and they would post online on boards like, Career Builder, Monster. Still things are manual. What do I mean manual? The employer has to manually go on, and type up whatever, and then everything is listed there, and then the person goes on and sees what's there, and it's basically like a newspaper online, right? But then, like everything, somebody comes along and disrupts that model. Well, the disruptive model comes along, and there's Indeed and there's ZipRecruiter, and that's where we get into these aggregate job searches. That's where you have these jobs that now, wait a minute, did my slide go out? Did my slide go out, y'all? My slide went out. As I bring my slide back, and I hope I can bring my slide back, what you find is that we move, I'm trying to do two things at one time. We move from this area where there is the manual posting, right, to where there is very clearly job automation. That's where Indeed, that's where ZipRecruiter come in. So they are more advanced, but they automate things. I'm going to explain the difference in a second between automation and AI. There is a difference, and I know people kind of use them interchangeably, and I want to disabuse you of that for a second. Did we get it back up? Okay, my people got it back up. Thank you. All right, so let's get back to it. I'm bringing you through the history of things because I think it's important to know where we're going as really a world when it comes to recruiting. Whether you're an employer, that's really who I'm talking to now. But even if you're a job seeker, this is important for you to know. So then there goes into automation, which is where you go on these sites, the Zip, and you type all this stuff up, and all of these jobs. The employer sends the jobs some way to, usually it's through some sort of feed, that the company, that means the company's HR computer, as it were, I just told that way, is talking to the computer at the job board, and it's automatically sending these jobs over, and then they are being posted on to the job boards. Let me speed this up. And then you have all of these other ones that come along. I've already, the Zip, the Indeeds, all this stuff. All of those things come along, right? And they start using different things like distribution, but still this is not where we're going. This is where we are, but I want to tell you where we're going. Where we are going is a technology called programmatic. So I want to show you this because this is look, everybody wishes they knew stuff before the stuff hit the fan. You know what I mean? And this is why I want to help you here. Don't be the person that 10 years later, if you're an employee, well, it won't be 10 years. I'm going to tell you this now. This is a technology, this type. I don't know, there's programmatic, and this is what I'm going to explain what this is. Every company that's doing more than, I'm going to say, 500,000 a year in sales is going to be using programmatic in some way to do hiring in the next 3 years. There's no question about that. The question is, what company, let's say, would they go with, or how would they move forward with it? Now, this is the thing here. I was talking to the senior VP in this company, and we're talking, and he said something that made me really rethink everything, because my role is to spread the word. That's what I do. I am spreading the word about how employers can use this technology, right? And it can completely change the way they use the job boards. And he says to me, Darrell, you're not, competing against the competitors. And I was like, I didn't even know what he meant by that. He's like, you're not competing against the competitors. I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, the other people that do what we do, these other companies, those aren't the ones that you're competing against, because chances are since we're the number one in this space, if they don't know us, they don't know them. The problem is you're competing against an old way of thinking. Hold on, let me stop before I go further. When he told me this, I said that has an analogy for life. That forget technology, hiring, retention, employers. Just think about life. Think about in life, really what he's saying. How many times we think we're talking to somebody and we think what we are sort of competing against in their mind is something else that's similarly positioned, but no, maybe it's that they're thinking about the past. I was about to go somewhere with relationships on that, but isn't that funny in life how sometimes we just get stuck to what was? So anyway, I'm giving you what's happening here. So what is programmatic? Programmatic is a technology, first of all, that uses the job boards. Let's start there. It doesn't circumvent the job board. It actually uses it, but it is using AI enablement to make employers' dollars more effective on those boards. So let me paint the picture for you. I work with franchisees, small business operators, medium business operators, right? That come and say, look, I've got 30 locations. I've got 5 locations. In some cases, I've got 70 locations across the country. And we're posting, we're already spending money to get this, to get the workers to post. Because every time, let me just say this for a second, every time you as a job seeker are looking on Indeed for an ad, or you're looking on Facebook or wherever that ad is posted, somebody paid for that. So just like you're frustrated and you're like, I put in 20 applications and nobody heard. I'm talking to employers that are sitting around like, I spent $20,000 last month and only got 5 people. And those 5 didn't work out for me. So understand there's frustration on both sides. So what my goal is, and the goal of our office is, we are connectors. We're connecting the employers. We're connecting the people that are frustrated and tired of spending money and not on job boards and don't know where the heck is going and don't know how it's being spent. And we're saying, look, we're working with partners that can help you spend money on those boards better, so that way you can be connected with that other end, which are the job seekers, which are the communities, are the people that we're working with on the ground that we want to help get employed. But we're not going to help do that one by one. We're going to do it in scale by changing the way that hiring is done. So let me get back to this, right? So I'm working with employers. Employers come and they say, I remember one. I'll give you an example of one. One comes to me. This was in November. So this is now November in the pandemic, of course. This franchisee is in, let me get this right. So this franchisee has 30 stores, but is headquartered in Arkansas. And so this was the issue. He's like, look, Darrell, I'm spending thousands of dollars on Indeed, and I'm not seeing any return on it. And I'm spending money on Facebook. I'm like, well, wait a minute, how are you spending money on Facebook? Now, this is an employer that is running 30 stores. Now, this is what we call blue-collar millionaires, which means what? It means, don't get this thing twisted, even though they might seem to be blue-collar people, whatever that means. I don't even like those words. These are folks that are making millions of dollars because they're running their franchise. Now, they're working hard. They're not kicking up and somebody else is doing the work. In some cases, maybe once they might have hired a team to do it. But for the most part, so this is a man who is, it's 30 stores. And so he's telling me he's got somebody that's on Facebook. I said, well, what the heck are they doing on Facebook? He said, well, Darrell, we're trying to find people on there because this is his frustration. I want you to understand, as a job seeker, you're not the only one frustrated. You're frustrated clicking all these ads. He's frustrated. He's spending thousands of dollars posting on these boards, trying to figure out when to post, where to post, how long to post, which boards to use. He told me he's on Indeed. He told me he's trying to use Snag. Now he's like, I have some money and we're boosting stuff on Facebook. And my question is, when do you run your stores? You've got 30 stores. Obviously, he's got managers. He's got a team. He's got general managers. That's part of his frustration. When franchisees call me, first of all, they don't call me because they like me. They don't call me because they want to have a conversation. They call me because they have a problem. What's the problem? The problem is they aren't getting the workers that they need. They're spending money on job boards. They're spending money on Indeed. Some of them have people that they are using to work with on Facebook. If I gave you, and I'm going to start sharing some stories, I am amazed by the ways and the things that employers will do to get talent. I want you to understand, let me say talent, workers, applicants, anybody in the door, people that really want to work. I want you to understand, and I've heard people come to me and say, Darrell, they're not really, people don't really want workers. I put in applications. That is not the truth. I'm working with people all the time. They're looking for workers. They need workers. They're struggling for workers. And when they call me, they're frustrated because they're spending all this money on these boards and they don't know what's next. You would be surprised how many people called me during the pandemic just to say this: Darrell, we're making more money than we really can do with in this sense. And it might sound to be like boasting to say that, but that's really not the case. Think about it. If you're a business owner and you're making more money than you have workers to keep that sort of foundation built, that's not a good thing for you. I know at church we always talk about, Lord, I want a cup that runs over. But I'm going to tell you something. As a business owner, you want a larger cup. You want more capacity. Because I remember one of the franchisees that I'm working with, he has 70 stores now. He told me in 10 years, I'm going to double them. So to double 70 stores in 10 years, he says, I have a plan every year of what I need to hit. That means that even though I made twice or 3 times as much as what I expected to make this year, a lot of people made 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 times X what they expected to make last year because they didn't expect the pandemic. The problem was if there was not a structure in place to use the money to get the hires, then it didn't work. If there was not a structure in place, I'm working with franchisees, you would be surprised, who deal with turnover so bad that they are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, across all of their locations overall, just basically based off of turnover. And so what I'm telling you is when we do hiring right, it changes things for everybody. There's not an employer in this country that is right now posting for talent that's not overspending. I want to stop and say this. If you are manually posting on job boards, that's what this whole presentation I'm giving is about, then you are doing things the wrong way. You're wasting money. You're spending, and you know you are. And so what's the solution, right? So let me keep moving forward, right? So I'm working with these franchisees and they're coming because they're making money. They have a lot of money, but they don't have the workers. That's not a good thing. And they're also posting on job boards and they don't know. I mean, unless you are a data analyst, when do you post on a job board? I'll wait. What's the comedian says? I'll wait. Like, really? So let me tell you another story, right? I'm talking to one franchisee, right? I have fun at what I do because I love working with the people that I work with. They're phenomenal people. I'm talking about at the companies that I work with. I love sharing the word about the different great ways to do hiring. And I love working with the owners of these businesses because even though they're frustrated when they call me, and even though, they're angry sometimes about the fact that they're spending money and they're not getting things, or they feel like the unemployment money is causing people to click these ads and, and really not have any intention on coming in, I enjoy the process. And so one of the guys is telling me, he's like, well, I post on Indeed. I said, okay. So this was a guy that I had shared with, I think he has something between 20 and 25 stores. And I reached out to him back in June. He told me, we don't, no, I don't want to hear from you. Thank you. Okay. So I reached out to him again in about 3 months. Now he wants to have a conversation. What changed in 3 months? Well, I'll tell you what changed. First of all, the pandemic kept going. Secondly, his challenges with hiring only got worse. And he recognized that for every person that he wasn't hiring, it was another dollar going out the door. And this is the problem when you don't do hiring right. when you're understaffed, the ones that you have are more likely to quit too. So your turnover goes up exponentially. Isn't that ironic? As your staffing gets lower and lower. So now he calls me because he has all this money, probably less than he would have had that he would have called me before, but whatever. He's got this money, right? He's got these stores, but now the problem is he's about to go into the busy season of the busiest season, what he expects of the year. Many of the folks that I'm working with, the Super Bowl, New Year's Eve, things like that. This is where, you know, they're making across the board, making with, you know, all types of money. So he's trying to get prepared. So he's calling me like, I know I brushed you off 3 months ago, but let's talk now. So I wanted him to understand that, first of all, for me, this is not about selling. God has gifted me with a lot of ways to use my gifts. This to me is a passion. I wanted him to understand that when you get hiring right, it's going to help everybody. So I began to ask him, how are you doing things now? I mean, that's the start of it. If you don't need us, then don't use us. If what you're doing works for you now, then keep doing it. So he tells me he's manually posting. I know that's not working, because if you're manually posting, even if you think you're effective, and even if you're good at it, listen to me. Now you are competing against the computers. Now you're competing against all these companies that are creating all of these proprietary softwares. You know what it's almost like? Remember when Facebook first came out? You could just kind of post your little cute kid, and she had little cute slippers on or whatever, and it went viral. Now it's different. Now the ones that are going viral, they've got folks behind the scenes. They're working on filters. They're putting hashtags and things. They're changing things. Everything, even though it looks organic, it's really things on the back end that are making the difference. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You were posting before 5 years ago, and it worked. You did it 2 years ago, and it worked. You did it before the pandemic, and it worked. I want you to hear me now. If you are a business owner, if you own any business and you are in consistent need for looking for talent, looking for workers, looking for hires, I want you to understand something. The way that things have been done have been completely disrupted. And what I am sharing with you now is what the companies are doing, these big companies that are hiring 100,000 at a clip, 300,000 at a clip. That's what I want you to understand. And they have the millions, right? Because that's how this technology always happens. It starts there. But what's happening is, and part of my role is to share, hey, it's good news. This is actually now being brought down to scale, so to speak, for your business owner that's not spending $1 million. They have to be spending something. If you're spending $10, I don't want to be rude, don't call me. If you're spending $1,000 in a year, I'm not the person for you. I'm really not. But I'm talking about people that are already spending. You're already spending $10,000, $20,000 a year because you're making $100,000 a year. You're making $200,000 a year. So it's nothing for you to put aside 5%, 10% for recruitment. That's the people that I'm talking to right now. If you're not, if you're sitting here like, well, Darrell, what's programmatic and what's that? You know, I had a young lady, sweetheart, she called me. She said, I heard about what you were telling me they do. I'm a work from home mom. How can you help me? And I have my own company. I'm like, well, I can't help you with anything because this is high volume hiring at scale. I didn't say it that way. I told her to tune into my broadcast because there's plenty of inspiration. And there is. I'll throw in a quick plug here at darrellbennett.com and comebackswinging.com. However, for the hiring technological solutions and the companies that we're working with, I was like, it's just not going to work. So what is programmatic? What is programmatic? It is a new way of using it's new technologies that are using existing platforms. Let me start there. It's new technologies using existing platforms. Let me start with the existing platforms. The existing platforms are the platforms that are already being used. So let's go back to the franchisee. I never answered the question. Hold on, y'all get me excited. Let me back up. I never answered the question that I told you I asked him. I asked him, he had between 20 and 25 stores. I said to him, when he calls me back, how are you doing the posting now? He says, well, Indeed. I said, so how do you know when to post, what day to post, and what time? He said, well, I lie to you not. This is what he tells me. He's like, well, I kind of do it randomly to see. I try one thing one week, and then I switch it the next week, and then I'll try another one another week. And I'm thinking in my mind, I don't know how many possible combinations this is. Now, I'm thinking that my math teacher would not be proud of me, because I'm thinking, what's 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 6? You know, how do you do it when you try to figure out the possible number of combinations? I'm thinking, how in the world can you manually post to try to figure out when you're getting the best return on investment? And you're not doing this for one location. He's doing this for 30 locations. And when I say he has his, you know, he has a director of operations that was on the call with me, but I'm using him interchangeably. It's the same person as far as I'm concerned. It's inefficient. You got a person trying to figure it out. And I'm trying to explain to him, you're competing against the machines that's doing it. Try that on the side. First of all, how's that working for you? How's it working for you trying to figure out? And this is the thing, how much money are you wasting doing that? And his answer was, I don't know. And this is where I get a little bit like, I come out of the sales role, so to speak, and I'm really just passionate about what I do, because I'm thinking for every dollar that you waste on that job board, that's another dollar that you can't use maybe for, maybe for recruiting for someone else, right? That could be used. Or for money that could be used for training, for development. This is how serious this is. When we solve the hiring issue, employers and business owners, franchises are calling me saying after 3 months of using, you know, it's technology, we now have the money to put into developing. I have one franchise, I'm gonna just tell you right quick, I have one franchisee I'm working with. He's in, I don't want to get it wrong. I know he's gonna get mad if I get it wrong. It's Ohio, Michigan. It's Ohio. That's where he is. He's in Ohio. I'm so excited about this because when he started working with us, the plan was he actually wanted to provide delivery vehicles for his workers, but he wasn't going to be able to do that without money. And he had a set of money in proportion for his recruitment budget. And I said to him, I said, look, if we work with you and we get this thing right, and I get you connected with the right people and the right tech, you know, with the right tech that's going to get you what you need on these boards, so that way you can get, you know, the workers that you need, you're going to be able to take that extra money and put that aside, so that way you can push that into building out your business. I just got a call from him 2 weeks ago, and he said, Darrell, we just got our fleet of vehicles, and now we're about to, because we're doing all of this recruitment and we're posting his ads, now we're about to do a whole set of ads just for people who don't have cars. How good do you think that makes my heart feel? To know that I've never even been to that state, but I am a part of, because of one, the gift that God has given me, two, the resources and that the favor that I've been given by people in my path, folks at, you know, the companies that I'm talking about that I work with, and I'm passing them over to these folks. And because of that, I know now that there are people in Ohio that would have not been able to find a job, right? Because they didn't have a car. Now, because we were able to do this right, now they can work. That's what happens when we do hiring right. I want you to understand that. That's what happens when we do hiring right. We can put the money into development. We could talk about, that's why it bothers me when people talk about diversity and inclusion. Yeah, but you want to know what real diversity and inclusion looks like? Let's build out businesses where we employ and deploy people. We develop them. We make them to know how strong and powerful they are. I'm working with franchisees that are taking portions of their money and they're putting it into schools. They're putting it into, I don't just mean charity, and I'm not downplaying charity, but I think there's a difference between deploying your money and sending your money to charity and deploying it to create leaders and create change makers. And what we're seeing is I'm working with people who are, because they're able to do hiring right, they're taking that money and they're putting it in the programs that are helping some of their workers go to school, go to college. You know, that makes me excited. Go to graduate school. And we're working with employers and franchisees that are, hold on, stop. Let me say this. The goal of leadership is not to make more followers, but to create more leaders. We're working with franchisees who are creating more franchisees. How? Because they have the money to do it. because we're helping them solve the hiring challenge. So before I finish what I was going to say with this slide, let me stop and just say this. If you know an employer that is looking to hire in volume, I need you to have them reach out to me, or I need you to tell me who to connect with. And I'm talking specifically, we have, I'm talking about the franchisee. I'm talking about the small business owner and the medium business owner. Let me make that clear. I'm talking about they own, I'm working with people, but have about 7 or 8 locations of a franchise up to with folks that have 300. So, you call that, that's between small and medium business size, but that's what I'm talking about. Folks that are doing high volume hiring, and we want to show them how to do it better. So what is programmatic? The company that I consult with is PandaLogic. It's the only company in the world right now that is doing programmatic. This is actually interesting. That's doing programmatic in this way. I want to be I want to be accurate here. And I'm going to explain what that means in a second. Before I even tell you this, I want to say this. In the next 3 years, this is all going to be like, Darrell, whatever. This is not going to, literally in 2 years, the way that the landscape is going to be changed, you're going to look back at this presentation and say, Darrell, I can't believe you thought you were telling us something. Before I even tell you this, let me give you a quick story, right? Think about the days. So I'm 35. So I still remember times where it was like before the internet and all that. I remember when me and my mom would go to the travel agent. Now, who would have thought? I remember when Travelocity came along and people were like, you'll never have to go to another travel agent. People were like, yeah, right. Who's going to trust something? First of all, who's going to trust somebody you don't even know online? Because I'm like, people know their travel agent and they've built relationships. You're going on some site you don't even know and you're typing some random stuff. What is that even? Okay, yeah. Now, after, a multi-billion-dollar industry later, who really still has travel agents? Some people do. Don't get me wrong. Some people do. But by and large, when people are booking their tickets or booking travel, they are not going to travel agents. And why am I telling you all this? That is a huge analogy for what's happening here. The manual posting, the days, I don't care who you have, whether you have a team, a data analyst, whatever, but the days of them going on a computer, trying to figure out on Indeed, how much of your budget, you're going to put to this, or I've got 30 drivers that I need. I've got 20 cooks that I need. I've got 100 software engineers that I need, and you're trying to figure out which board to use and whether you're going to post on Monday at 3 p.m. and you're trying to, or you're going to put it up during the weekend and you're trying to figure out trends. That day is over. That's the manual posting day. And what I'm explaining is even the Zip recruiters and the Indeeds and all that, they are even trying to invest in what's called programmatic technology, because what they understand is their platform provides the exactly that, the platform, but not the strategy. So what do I mean? New York Times, I want to give an analogy. I remember the first time when I wrote my first book, I was 18 years old. And I was so excited to write my book. And I was one of those that was like, I fell for all of the advertisements. They would send me stuff differently. Oh, congratulations, you wrote a book. The New York Times wants to talk to you. I was really that young and dumb that really thought that the New York Times wanted to talk to me about my book. Anyway, so I would respond back. And of course, it was a lot of ad agencies. And what you would do is they would say to me, if you give me $1,000, which when I wrote the book in 2004, $1,000 went a lot further than it is now. If you give us $1,000, we'll get it to, they didn't mention New York Times anymore, but we'll get it to, this outlet and that outlet and this and that. And what that is distribution. That's what Indeed does. That's what Zip does. If you're a business owner, you know what I mean. You're going to take your budget. You're going to take whatever you have. You go to Indeed. They say you want $10,000. You want to spend with us? Thank you. Great. You want to spend $50,000, $100,000? Great. They might have different tiers, but there's not a strategy behind it. Even if they have someone, and there are people that work. I'm not talking account managers. I'm not talking about people that'll help you along the way, but it's a platform, but it's not a strategy. let's go back to the distribution, right? I can have you distribute my book all over the place, right? But if there's not a strategy, how do I know that you're putting it out at the right time? How do I know that you're putting out the press release and you're putting it out at noon, and you're probably going to put it out at the cheapest time anyway? That's why you're able to bundle this package. So the fact that you put the ad out there, the promotion out there for my book, doesn't mean anything if it's not seen by the right people. That's what I talk to franchisees about all day. You spent money to put it on Indeed. Okay, but how's that working for you? It's on Indeed. I mean, I'm not laughing. I'm laughing with you because I know how frustrating it is. You spent money on Indeed. People will even say, yeah, well, I spent money to be on Indeed. You didn't spend money to be on Indeed. You spent money, I thought, so that way you could get the workers, the hires that you need. Indeed's only a medium, or at least that's what I thought it is. And if it's not a medium, I don't mean a psychic medium. Woo, I mean a medium. It's only the medium. It's only the platform. So if there are better technologies to help you leverage Indeed, leverage Snag a Job, that's what we're doing. That's what I want you to see the slide. We are connecting people so I'm connecting people with PandaLogic, this phenomenal tech company that's using AI enablement. This is powerful to help employers do hiring completely different. Now, I want to tell you some stats before I even go any further. Because when I tell you this, last year, we helped fill at PandaLogic over 1 million jobs. I can't tell you the companies because I don't have permission to share the companies, but they're some of the world's biggest brands. My role is just to share with the franchisees. But it was exciting for me to know that the people that had been locked out, you know how it is, like if you trade stocks and options, the big boys, if it's, you got $10 million, you can make certain moves. But if you only have $1,000, I mean, come on now, you may not be able to do much. So it's exciting for me to know that the small business owners, that the franchisees, the ones that have 10 locations, but they don't have 1,000 locations, they're doing hiring, but they're not doing hiring necessarily at, 50,000, but they have needs that now we say, hey, we've got this technology that we're using, right? Then programmatic just means that I want to be very transparent here. I know I told you before, there's PandaLogic's the only company that's doing programmatic. But then I had to correct that and say like this. So there are 3 or 4 others, I believe. All of those were bought by the job boards. So like Indeed bought one, another one, because they understood, again, they've got this they've got this platform, but even they understood we don't have this powerful technology, right? Because they understand that their technology, this programmatic can help them. Now, none of those companies were doing it as well as PandaLogic is doing it. So all of those other companies were bought out, subsumed, which means, so this is the thing about it. When you're bought out by somebody larger, yes, there are advantages about that, but the problem is then that means that they were no longer what we call platform agnostic, meaning if that company is now bought by one job board because that job board is trying to figure out how to use the technology to be more effective in that space, the job board's not going to allow them to use that technology to help another one. So we're agnostic, meaning that part of what helps us work with franchises is we say we work with all the job boards. You kidding? We work with all of them. Because that's their first question is, how are you going to compete with Indeed? We don't. We use them. But you're not going to use your account with them. You bring all of your budget and shift it instead of spending some on Snag, some on Facebook jobs, some on Indeed. You threw a little bit on Craigslist when nobody was looking. We're working with all of the job boards. That's what PandaLogic does. Every major job board that you can think of, we're working with. We're bringing in millions of dollars in business. So that means we're able to leverage the dollars and all that. But then also we're able to give folks in these franchisees a reach into a deeper talent pool. What do I mean? Because now we're not just working with the Snag a Jobs, all the ones that you can name, the career builders, all the ones that I put up there on this slide. We're also working with literally, I think it's over 130 other job boards. These are small ones. These are niche boards. So, franchising comes and says, we need software engineers. Well, we've got a way to direct that technology that's going to post on those boards where they're going to be seen, right? Where they're going to be seen. So I'm saying all this to say I need your help. I need more people to know about the better ways to do hiring, high volume hiring. I don't mean I got one person. I don't mean you call me. It's like, oh, I know somebody. I need one hire, or I'm talking about people that are doing high volume hiring. Even if you are aware of some of the associations, I'm just passionate about this space. I'm interested in being in the associations and the places where people are looking. When we change the way hiring is done, see, this is now where I got to put on my other hat. For those of you that have followed my story, go to darrellbennett.com, go to comebackswinging.com. When we change the way that hiring is done, we're going to change the entire way that America looks. Remember, this whole thing is about jobs and justice. This is all about, I don't want to play this game about just telling people, like people say, there's no hope in dope, or stop the violence. Well, give people an opportunity. Let's talk about economic revitalization of communities and deploying people, not just employing people, but deploying people with their skills, resources, and their passions to help them to be contributing members of society. That's what hiring is about to me. That's what hiring is about to me. And so when I'm working with folks, whether they are the owners of the business or the operators, maybe they are HR folks or TA, talent acquisition folks, I understand that at the core of it, regardless of whatever brand they might be repping, I say repping, that's my Baltimore coming out. Whatever brand they might be wearing or whatever company, whatever company they may be a part of, I understand that the larger issue, because before they were ever a part of that company, chances are when they were going to school and they were thinking about what they wanted to do, they weren't thinking about the company. They were thinking about people, right? They didn't even know where they would work. And where they work now, they probably won't work 20 years from now. So I understand every call that I get on that we've got to clear the air, that this isn't about so much me trying to, you have a problem and you should use this technology. Tell you the truth, I really don't care about technology. I probably shouldn't have even said that. And the fact that I consult with a technology company, I'll tell you, technology means nothing to me. Technology only matters to me in as much as it helps people. Some people believe that you use people to build technology. I believe that technology is to be used to build people. And so the only reason I care about technology and using the word programmatic and all that is because I have seen the way at scale it shifts hiring for communities. I've seen it. I've watched it. I've witnessed it. I've beheld it. And so now I am very passionate and very serious about seeing people do hiring differently. Before I get off, let me share a quick story. When the pandemic hit, I was like many of y'all. I didn't know what was going on. I remember in March, so my primary residence is in New York, and the shutdown in New York happened so quick. It wasn't even. It just happened quick. It just happened quick. At least, it seemed like we were hearing about it and then not. So I remember I'm having conversations. So at this point, I was not speaking to franchisees about the better ways to do hiring. I was in a different role, and my role was to call these business leaders of these, what you call enterprise companies, which are the big companies, to try to get them to take a meeting with someone else who would talk to them more. So basically, what I do now, before I was the person that introduced me, if that makes sense. So I'm saying this to say, in the middle of the pandemic, I'm calling and talking with people. In some cases, I remember in one case, I'm talking to the VP of a very well-known, if I say this brand, you'll know this brand. So I remember she says to me, and it's a VP of a bank, she's like, I don't even know if I'm going to have a job in the next month. And it was a really human moment because, my role had been and has been, I'm talking to business leaders all day. So we understand, we kind of try to put some stuff aside. We understand it's the nature of the role. You may not like me. I don't say like me, but I'm calling you, and it's not necessarily, we may not want, but we're trying to solve each other's problems, right? it rarely gets personal. It rarely gets personal. But what I found when the pandemic hit, it was an entirely different way that we were doing business. When I say we were, I mean, I noticed the conversations I was having with people different. So I'm giving you the example of the one VP, and she did. She said, I don't even know if I'm going to have a job. And I got quiet because I didn't know. Now, mind you, I mean, I don't want to presume to know her life. She probably makes $1 million a year doing what she does. But it reminded me, this is hitting everybody. And it's easy at first to kind of say, oh, poor lady who makes all this money. But I think also what was probably on her mind is, and I know as I had some conversations, there were some people, just like I'm talking to some, and they're hiring thousands because the doors were shut and everybody had to do delivery. There were businesses, they were making so much money, it was nothing, they didn't know what to do. And then I'm talking to people that were like, we'll shut our doors, we'll never come open again. I talk to people, I can't even tell you what this is like, to talk to people who built businesses for 20 years. In some cases, they put everything into expanding their business for the new decade. What's the new decade? 2020. I know one in particular put all this money into building all these new stores. Then the pandemic hit. So I'm talking to people on both ends. I want you to understand that. And these conversations were very enriching for me because it helped me to see that there is more that brings us together than that separates us. And just like you might be frustrated on the other end of Indeed and you're clicking and you're trying to figure out why is this not working, I've been there. I told y'all, for those of you that read my book, my newest book, Come Back Swinging, I talk about how I graduated from Harvard Law School and it was hard for me to find a job. I don't mean just any job. I could have gotten any job, but I mean sustainable employment, because that's what we're talking about here. We're not just talking about giving people a job. No. That's why I'm bothered by when people talk about the unemployment rate in this country. We need to talk about the underemployment rate. We need to talk about the people that left the job market. Let's talk about that. So I was recognizing during the pandemic that what was happening was it was a very personal thing that was happening, and that employers were understanding and recognizing that they were in a boat with them, I don't want to say with their employees, but they were. I started, it's interesting because I think in life, and maybe this is a larger point I'm making, in life it's so easy for us to have stations in life. It's just easy for us. I'm better than you. I'm higher than you. I'm a VP. You're a director. I'm mayor. You're governor. Or, we always like to, even you go on an airplane, it's first class. It's comfort. It's comfort plus. Like we got all these. And so I think we do these things. We classify these things, but at the end of the day, so I think what happens with that is the point I wanted to make with that is it's easy for employers to do that and to not see that, the people that you're hiring, they're not just hires, they're people too. They're not just talent, they're people too. They're not just applicants, they're people too. And many know this already, but sometimes we need to have things happen to remind us. And so I know many employers, and I've seen this happen, and many people will say it's an employer's market. I'm talking about pre-pandemic. And there are many employers, and we've seen this, unfortunately, hopefully none that I've worked with, certainly not, I would hope, but there are employers we know who have used their power for negative or kind of thrown their weight around the sort of, and we've seen this. I mean, my first job, so before I ever graduated from Harvard Law School, before I ever graduated from Morehouse College, before I ever had been an attorney and wrote books, my first job was at McDonald's in that trailer park that I used to live in Virginia. And I remember, well, I had a great supervisor. She was great. I can't even say anything negative about her. But I do remember there were some others that were in the leadership team that just weren't as nice. And I say that to say it's easy in life to kind of feel like I'm here and you're here. But one thing what the pandemic did was it shifted that. And I was having calls, people would call me and say, Darrell, I don't even know what my business is going to look like next year. And it would be these human moments that we'd have, human moments, because I know they're not telling me, thinking that I'm going to solve their business problem there, but it's just a recognition that, wow, you know. And so, um, uh, I have a sort of affinity or a soft spot. Y'all know I wrote my first book when I was 18, and I feel like I've been a hustler my whole life in some way. Even before I was 18. I mean, you can you you can find this out about me. I mean, these speeches are up on the internet. I mean, I was 13 years old going around. I remember, selling stuff. You know what I mean? I had a newspaper route at it. So, you know what I mean? I remember working in my dad. I, I have an affinity for people that, a lot of these owners, they work to get there. They work. And so I think it's easy to lambast and say, oh, because I've seen it on both ends. I hope I'm not rambling here, but this is what I'm trying to say. I've seen it on both ends. I've heard the complaints from the job seeker, right? And I've worked with the job seeker and how to be more effective with your resume and how to land the interview and how to own the room and I've commiserated with the job seekers. I mean, I've been in many roles, and for those of you that follow my career, you go on comebackswinging.com or Darrell Bennett, you see the videos. And I've commiserated with the job seekers, and these employers aren't hiring enough people, and yeah, they're playing games, and why do they call you for an interview and they don't, and this over the past couple years, being in this role with working with employers, now I kind of see things from the other end in a way that I never thought that I would. Now I'm seeing the frustration of the business owner. Now that's I don't want to say keeping me up at night, but now I'm thinking about ways of solving that. I'm talking to the owner that's like, Darrell, I got 300 hits on an Indeed application or an Indeed ad yesterday. And I spent literally all day texting and calling people back. And do you believe that today I only got 3 people that said that they would come in for an interview? And then I'll call them in a week and I'll ask him what happened with the 3 and he'll tell me, well, if the 3 that said they would come in, only 1 came in and that one came high. I'm seeing their frustration now. I'm seeing the frustration of the one woman I remember, she told me, she's like, look, people want a job, but they don't want to work. They got to work. They want to come and they want to, they want to be on their phone. And I know I've seen this because I've been teaching classes and I'm teaching you. This would get me. You told me that you broke. You told me that. You told me, I'm talking now, I'm a job seeker. You sitting in my class texting somebody, and the first thing I want to say is, if that person hey, if they can help you get a job, slide on out this class and go work with them. But so now I guess I'm saying all to say, I'm seeing the frustration on the other end too. And I'm recognizing that there's a lot of misunderstanding on both ends. I don't think that every job seeker is playing around and it's the unemployment money. And I don't think that every employer, right? And I don't think every employer is trying to lowball you, and every employer is, trying to play a game with you. I think what's happening is employers want workers. That's it. They want workers. They want people that's going to work and do the job. And that's what we're here to help people do. Help use the technology that are going to help the people do that. Now, I know I keep saying, now I'm really going to get off. Before I get off, this is where we're getting to. This is really where we're getting to, because I want to, somebody put hashtag keeping them honest. Hashtag keeping them honest. I had a very good conversation with the CEO of PandaLogic. That's who brought me into first to just help spread the word about this, what the company's doing. And then, all these stories I'm telling you about working with these franchisees, that's as a result of the consultancy work that I do with PandaLogic. I spoke with the CEO and I said, look, you're CEO of a company that is about to be a $100 million company, a company that has grown by leaps and bounds, partly because great product, phenomenal team, strong leadership. I've seen that. And also time and place. We were working with clients who, almost hate to say it, but benefited tremendously from the disruption from last year. It benefited tremendously. In some cases, 5, 6, 7 times plus times what they would have made. I mean, some of the folks that we're working with. And so as a result, we've been a part of that growth, success, and expansion. So I spoke with him and I said, look, and he believes this as well. Much is given, much is required. I mean, we can't, So I understand that my role is to share with franchisees, multi-store owners across the country of what we're doing. By the way, we're placing hires all over North America, so this is not specific to a location. But I said, I want to be doing more. And quite frankly, I want you and us to be doing more. And I knew he was on board with what I meant before I even went further, but I still kind of asked, what do you mean? Well, we're spreading the word about this technology. This technology, in a nutshell, is a powerful platform that's using some of the most, innovative tools and technology that you can think of. This predictive thing, the stuff that they're doing that put people on the moon and how they're able to predict that you want a sandwich before you wanted it. And how you said something and then later on the ads on your phone, that type of technology. Yeah, we're using that and helping employers leverage that on job boards so they can get hired. And they could, it's literally changing the way that people use job boards. It's changing the way that posting is happening. It's changing the way that hiring is happening. Yes. But I still have a problem. He said, well, what do you mean? Well, I had a grandmother that said, you don't throw good money after bad. That's what grandma said, rest in peace. What grandma meant was, you can do a good thing on top of a bad structure. You can do a good thing with a bad motive. I don't want to get there, but you can do a good thing, but if you have a bad structure and a bad foundation, then what does it profit? I had once heard that the wise man built his house on a rock. Some built it on sand and it washed away. Some built it on shoddiness and it washed away. But it's a power in the foundation. And you say, well, what are we talking about? Because I'm not, you know how you have a conversation with someone and sometimes you talk about one thing, you think you're talking about one thing. Clearly, I'm not talking about rocks and sand. I'm talking about if we're going to help companies with hiring, and we're helping basically shine a spotlight on them. That's what we're doing. We have the power of this technology. And if you don't think technology has power, you need to look at the elections of the past 4 years. Well, I was going to say 4 years. Last election and 4 years ago and years before. Technology has power. And I said, if we have this type of technology, we have this power to shine the spotlight on the company, to take dollars that normally they would have used for recruiting, and now they can get 2 times, 3 times, 4 times their return on investment, then how do we know that the company's worth shining the spotlight on? And it's a good point. It's not something that we can necessarily, that's when you get into subjectiveness and all of that, but this is what I'll say to you now. And this was the balance of my conversation with Terry, the CEO. I want to be a part of us not just bringing them people, but helping them to rethink structures, policies. Structures and policies. I can tell you just as simply, I remember one franchisee I was working with, he had 10 stores. He had 10 stores. And he says to me, nobody's calling me back. I said, well, when are you calling them after that? Because, he's getting these applications. His team is getting applications. He said, we definitely get back to him by the end of the week. I said, oh, really? By the end of the week? You do it that quickly? I didn't say that. Really? And he thought if he was getting back to people within 48, 72 hours, that was doing something that simple. I said, no, you can't. Within 24 hours, they've clicked 2, 3 other places on Indeed. And guess what? The other people, because you're not the only one that's looking for workers, and they're not, and they're looking other places as well. And so what we found is just by me, this wasn't even a large scale thing, just by me personally talking to franchisees, like in his case, saying, look, this is what I want you to tell your team. I want you to tell your team, just try it for me. Because I said, do you text? He said, we don't like the text because my managers are older. I said, but your workers are younger. So that really doesn't matter what you want to do. It's what your audience wants. And so I said, can you make a deal with me? If you're going to invest in this technology with PandaLogic, I don't want you to invest in this and then you still not get the best benefit, because the technology is powerful, but if your foundation's screwed up, then we still have the bump move, but not like you want. I said, do you promise me that you will instruct all of your managers? You got 10 general managers. I want you to call them tonight and say, every time they get an email, that by the end of the night between 3 p.m., I'm giving you free advice here now, anybody that's listening, we saw this through data trends, because AI can show you this, can later look back at data and all that. What we're finding, employers that have their managers or somebody, anybody, their grandmother, somebody reach out to the applicant within, well, obviously within 24 hours, but between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. by text message, dramatically increase their conversion rates. When I say conversion rates to at least get them to respond to perhaps have an interview. And so I said to him, will you promise me that you will today, not tomorrow, today, instruct all 10 of your managers that they are between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. the day that they receive the text, that they are to respond, that they receive the email, that they are to respond by text to the applicant. He said, I promise I'll do that. I'll at least see what it does. He called me within 1 month and he said, Darrell, you won't believe it. This was a changer. So yes, the technology helped, but it was also the things that he was doing on the back end. And I'm interested in that. I'm intensely interested in helping business owners be more effective at the back end. So let me go back to the conversation I had with the CEO. The foundation has to be strong. Now, the conversation I had with the CEO is not the foundation about whether or not you have a hiring placement structure. Now, I'm talking about something deeper. I have been in corporate America, or business, whatever. I've been in enough jobs in my life and enough roles to see that there are some times where employers are not just offensive, they are outright alienating people through the questions that they ask on the interview, through some of the things that are put in the ads. Let me give you an instance. This is what we found. When people put the word strong in their application, when an employer, let me turn this the other way. When a person reads strong, what we have found, when I say we, I'm not talking about at a company or a specific company. This is research across the board has found. What they have found is that people associate strong with masculine. So if an employer or whoever it is puts in the ad looking for strong, whatever it is, maybe it's a driver and they really mean strong, but maybe they mean strong analytical skills, math. That word strong subconsciously will cause more women to self-select out of that applying. Just something simple like that. And that's not a judgment call as to whether women are or are not strong. We already know the answer to that. We're just talking about perception here. And we're talking about just sometimes subtly. That's what they found. They just found subtly, that research found, a study found subtly, just by not using the word strong, they were able to make it more equal in who applied. See, that's my issue when I hear CEOs say, and I get to talk to a lot of CEOs now. They're sitting around the table, they're talking about how they have a problem and diverse people aren't applying. Well, let's talk about why they aren't applying. Because they certainly are frequenting your establishment because you're marketing to them. So it's not like they don't exist. Let's not act like they don't exist now. What was the Wells Fargo CEO that said he doesn't hire more people from diverse communities because they're not out there? Really? They're not out there, but yet they're at your bank. So the point I'm trying to make is we've got to get to this place where let's begin to look at what are the structures that are in place that are perhaps undermining your business. We could give you every applicant you want in the world, right? I mean, I remember the other day I was with somebody, and hate to say it, breath kind of stunk a little bit. Look, hey, you need a man. I don't know another way. I can't say that, but we were going somewhere, and I'm sitting there thinking, we're about to be in front of people, and this ain't gonna work. And until we get this one fixed, bringing you a bigger audience is actually might be a detriment. It might be better if we can't get you a man, right? Because if I don't know how to say that nicely, better than not bring you an audience. So what's the analogy I'm making? I'm working with some business owners, quite frank, if I can be quite nice and say it, I can't tell them, your breath stink. I mean, not literally, I'm giving the analogy. You have some structures in your business, maybe you don't want to fix it, they're not right, they're not working right, and you keep asking for a larger audience. I get it, you're spending money on Indeed. We can help you technologically with the getting more applicants. But if down funnel, because that's what we're helping top funnel, if down funnel your processes, your policies, the things that are happening, for some cases you have cultures that are corrosive. If your culture is corrosive, you're spending all this money on recruitment, but we still have a problem on the back end. So for those of you, this is now brings us full circle. For those of you that's followed my Jobs and Justice initiative that has been announced last month for 2021, let me repeat this. We are working with companies to help 100,000 people from disenfranchised communities get hired in 2021. That's totally, most of the franchises I'm working with, we're not even having a conversation about diversity. It's just about we just need hires. But since now I see the power of hiring at scale, and we're working with so many people, this is feasible. So jobs and justice means we're not just talking about shifting economic inequality. We're not just talking about shifting social inequality. We recognize that we've got to speak to the economic underpinnings in this country that have held classism in place, right? So jobs and justice. If we're helping folks get more hires, that's the jobs part. We're helping employers get the hires. We're saying, look, you're spending $20,000 here. I guarantee it'll be like you're spending $40,000 if you shift it here. But that doesn't deal with the justice. Because if there's a workplace that's corrosive, if you're asking people questions on the application that respectfully you shouldn't be. I remember one franchisee I was working with. This is actually locally in New York. Wasn't working with them actually first. This was my way of trying to pitch. I said, I know how I'll do it. I'll be a secret shopper. So I applied for a delivery position on a bike. When I tell you, I have applied for positions out of law school that were less onerous. I was asked a litany of questions, including, like the 3 references. And I don't mean to be rude, but I'm like, a delivery bike? Then I was asked for whether or not I ever had a criminal record. Mind you, this is the Bronx, New York. Like, really? Seriously? Meaning, had I ever been arrested? Beginning, like they even said you have arrested, traffic ticket. Then they said copy of my license and any infractions on my driving record. So I reach out when I did get in touch with the franchisee, and I'm like, let me guess. You're having challenges with hiring. I didn't say it quite like that because you can't do that. You get hung up on. But once I got him to speak to me a little bit, and he's like, yeah. And I told him, I said, look, I did some snooping around and I applied to one of your stores, just so you know. And it was a delivery bike position. And, I said, I don't want to be rude here, and you take it for what it's worth, but There was a lot of questions that were asked that were personal. I told him, I said, I've worked with people from, I told him about some of my backstory. You know, I didn't tell him all, but I told him, I told him, you asked, there was a lot of questions on it. And he goes, says, which is a good point. Well, we've got to know if their driving records are clean, because if people, he's like, look, the arrest thing, I get it. It's really not that serious. We just want to know. Even in my mind, I'm thinking, even if you want to know, it's still a way to ask. You might be pre-selecting people out before. And why do that? If you're running a nunnery, and there may be, and you're looking at more, but if you just need workers. But anyway, you can find that information out later. My thinking would be, don't ask it there, get people in the door to that. But man, maybe that's what you want to do, whatever. But this was the biggest thing. He says, because I'm listening, we have to have, you have to have a clean record. And he begins to go into this long dissertation about this one driver that they hired him. He hired him on a hunch. The driver had a dirty record. He ended up getting sued, da-da-da. If you're going with me and you're listening to the story, please tell me, before I even tell you, what is the big missing point here? I'm telling you the story here. I already told you I applied for the delivery bike position. They asked me all types of questions, including, references and, driving record and, have you ever had a misdemeanor, ever been arrested? I'm talking to him and he's like, yeah, well, we have to know this because people get in accidents and all that. I'll tell you the big issue here. And I said to him, sir, I applied for the delivery bike position. And he gets quiet. And he said, oh, and all those questions were asked about a driving record? I was like, yes. He said, I didn't know. That's the problem. So here this man is running this. I want you to know, you're not the only one that is, and a lot of times people are just busy. They're so busy running a business and they don't even know what's going on. So here he is, and it took him having this conversation with me for me to kind of raise his awareness. Here you are, and it's like, no. How many people are you losing like that? Because you're asking them about a driving record for a delivery bike position. Now, full transparency, he's not working. He never. I was never able to show him why he needed. I don't want to use the word convince because he clearly needed our help. I was never able to show him why he did. He never went with us. I don't know. Maybe tonight, if I'm just bored, I'll go on and see if they're still asking people for their driving record for the bike position. But it's just the point I'm trying to say, that sometimes what's happening is so you talk a good game about I want to hire and diversity and inclusion and I'm thinking you're cutting off your nose to spite your face because you want a delivery bike position and you're asking about a driving role, and he didn't even recognize that was happening. So what responsibility that comes with this technology, and there is responsibility in technology. That's why Zuckerberg and Dorsey and all these folks are getting called to the carpet now. That's why now over in China, I don't even want to get into that, and they're using that face recognition software, and the state is really just doing some disturbing things to its people with it. And as a result, I believe it was Jeff Bezos who came out and said that before they would allow American law enforcement to use the AI face recognition technology that Amazon has created, that they needed to have some discussions about ethics and what does that look like. And so I'm saying all this to say there's responsibility in technology. And I want to say this quite frankly, I'm not interested in working with any operator of any business that is not serious about wanting to really hire people and really, I don't want to get into this business about second chances. No, this is a business. No. This is a business. We all, you hire people based on whether they are the best for your, not just for your team, but for the role. You need people that think outside of perspective. So we're not talking about charity work here. We're talking about staffing businesses with the diversity of perspective and thought that's going to push your company forward. And when I work with folks, or if I get a hint or a sniff that, and there are folks I get that you might work with me, that's the irony that God has sort of positioned me here. This is almost like a Joseph moment where I get to work with employers that maybe, I hate to say it, but maybe if I walked in the other way around and they read about me, they might not hire me. I'm keenly aware of that. Let me be clear about that. This is what favor does. That's a whole nother thing. This is what favor does. This is a blessing that I can't earn. This is a hand that's over my life that covers me. So I recognize when I walk in the room that there are certain people that talk to me because they have to. See, some people in life will talk to you because they like you. Some people will talk to you because they need you. Some people talk to you because they have to. And you might say, what's the difference between have to and need to? Oh, you'll know the difference when you really, really have to, right? When it's become an emergency. And so I recognize that. And I believe that if an owner is not serious about really wanting to hire people and it's just about keeping the status quo, or me, myself, and mine, or sort of this exclusionary way of recruitment, I back up, and I back up quickly, because the only reason that I got into this is because I believe in the power of deploying people. And I don't want to get all churchy on you here, but I was literally reading the story of Genesis just this morning. And the very first thing that popped out to me as I was reading is the problem that they say, well, what's the first problem that was solved in the Bible? People say the problem of sin. Well, I'll tell you what I saw. It was in Genesis 1. And it said that God saw that there was what did it say? It said that God saw that there was a spring that went up from the earth to water the field, but God saw that there was no man to cultivate the earth. That was like and that made me think so powerfully about employment. Hiring is divine. I mean, I don't want to, it's providential. There is an assignment on your life. I want you to understand this. This is really that serious. There's an assignment, and that assignment is connected to gainful and meaningful employment. Because every time you're in a professional opportunity that really unlocks the greatness of who you are, that shows you something different about yourself to influence and impact people that you perhaps didn't even know that you could. So that's how serious this is. When we're talking about cultivating the garden, because that's what we're talking about. There was no man to cultivate it. I know in the age of AI, and I have the slide up and I'm telling you all about, let's use technology to help people hire better. And I want you to know something. Technology can help people do some things amazing. Technology can do some things that people could never do. Technology can do some things that people could do so much better, but there's some things that technology can never do. Technology can't cultivate. Can't. I'm telling you that biblically. I just pulled that right out. It spoke to me today in a whole new way. There was a spring that went up from the garden. Nobody to cultivate. There was a business idea, but there needed to be somebody. The computer has the idea, but who's going to work the business? Who's going to be up at night? Computer don't have no blood, sweat, and tears. Computer doesn't have emotions. That tethering that computers don't dream. You're at night, and I'm working with people there at night thinking about it's not just recruitment for them. They're trying to figure out how to expand their stores because that's going to help their children go to college. We're talking about building generational wealth. I'm working with companies that they are third generation owners. Check this out. That they've been owning in their family. I'm not talking about, because for some of you listen to me, the only thing you know about owning was a pair of Nikes and Jordans. I ain't talking about that. We got to get out of that. I'm talking about generational ownership, getting out of where every generation has to start again and everybody's got to pull themselves from their own bootstraps. But it's so amazing to work with people who it's like, no. These franchises, I didn't have to build them from the sweat of my own back, all of them. Some of it was from my grandfather. Some of it was from my father. So I love the fact that I get to come in and help you do hiring better and help you succeed more, and know that if I help you do what you do right, guess what? There's a fourth generation coming behind. And there's a fifth generation. And just like there were 4 stores when your grandpa did it, and there were 20 stores when your father kind of came up and cut his teeth, and now you're looking at 50 stores, I want to help you, and my team's going to help you, and we're going to connect you with people. So that way, 30 years from now, you got 300. That might be an arbitrary number, but it's possible. Anyway, let me go. If you are an owner, if you're an employer, if you're interested in doing hiring better, different, smarter, high volume hiring, you need to reach out to me. You need to reach out to me quickly. Friday, I want to give you the next thing I want you to look out for. I will be on here again between now and Friday, but for my franchising people, for my owners, for my employers that are interested in, more of this, I am going to be bringing on Michael Bryant. He actually was the owner of he's what you call a serial owner. He's owned cleaners. He's owned Subways. He's owned a number of businesses. And he's going to be on with us at 10 a.m. And he's going to be talking about what worked for recruitment when he was doing it and how have things changed. And we're just going to have a candid discussion about he's in no way associated with Panda Logic, so this is a very free-flowing discussion, and just we're not talking about this technology that I have here on the side. I keep trying to point to it. It's the other way, I think. This way, you get what I'm trying to do. I figured it out with the mirror. But we're just having a free-flowing conversation about the challenges. I'm not interested in what people know. I'm interested in what people don't know. You know what I mean? But that's not what gets me up. What you know, it's not the statements that get me up. It's the questions. And the question that we're answering is, how do we hire people at scale more effectively? That's the question. And Friday, join me. My LinkedIn group. If you're an owner or operator, you need to join it. DM me. I'll make sure you join. I know we're also simultaneously on Facebook. We're going to start a Facebook group. This is for owners and employers who are looking to do hiring better. Again, this is only for people that are serious, only for people that are already doing hiring. I'm not talking about if you're a job seeker. That's not for you. You need to go to darrellbennett.com and there's resources for you there. But this is specifically for the people that are doing the cultivating. That's what we're talking about. These are the ones that understood that there's a spring that's in the garden, right? But there was nobody to cultivate. And they're there to help. They are building businesses and they need workers. And if you need workers, you need to get in my LinkedIn group. That's where people are sharing best practices, and the Facebook group. That's all. That's really what it's about. We want to get the conversation going. There's a lot of these groups already happening. My problem is a lot of times they're very insular and competitive. So it's like this company has its own, and this company, and it almost feels like if we share it, then we're like cheating. So it works that I'm a consultant with Panda Logic, so I'm not a full employee. I get to kind of do my own thing, and I do, right? And Panda Logic isn't directly hiring these folks anyway. They're working with the companies, right? So it's a lot of hands-offness enough that this is just about sharing information. If you have a competitive spirit, you probably aren't going to like me anyway. You definitely would want to join my group. If you think this is about, I want to keep what I have, then this is not for you. But these groups are for people who want to share information. They want to share brain trust. They want to share best practices. They understand that if they hire better, we all do better. A rising tide lifts all ships. All right. Thank you all for listening. I know it was much longer than I expected, but I appreciate it. Again, my name is Darrell Bennett. Come back swinging. Signing off. Take care.